Special Report.
Hello, I'm Nicky Campbell. Welcome to EarthScan Special Report. Over the past few years, I've become more and more interested in the growing evidence concerning certain unexplained phenomena. So I was delighted to be asked by the Sci-Fi Channel to present this report. EarthScan has spent many months asking viewers from all over Europe to send in their eyewitness accounts of any inexplicable experiences or UFO sightings they have had. In this program, we bring together a number of their accounts and try and get an overview of what might be happening beyond the range of our normal, everyday experiences. Coming up later in the show, we learn from Colin Andrews about recent developments in the crop circle phenomenon.
These patterns are known. They are simply, I think, harbingers of tremendous change in our world.
We examine fresh evidence on unexplained animal mutilation.
Animal mutilation is a worldwide phenomenon. It occurs in any animal, any species, from the smallest mouse to the largest elephant.
And hear firsthand from someone who describes an alien abduction.
My sense of reality to normal life's changed. I realise that there is more to life than what we think.
But we start by meeting some of the many people from all over Europe who have seen unidentified flying objects. Now, our witnesses range from doctors to farmers, school children to grandparents, ordinary people who have incredible accounts to tell. Many are alone when they have these experiences. Others involve whole families who have all witnessed the same inexplicable sights.
I thought it was a vapour trail that I was seeing from another aircraft, and it was heading right towards us. It was flying in a vertical position. My husband took a look and he turned around and said to me, "That's not a plane."
We looked up and we noticed three lights in the sky. They looked just like stars, really, slightly off-white, and there was no noise with them. And they're all moving around together, mingling together, like reacting with each other in a way. Really fluid, really smooth movements, no jerky movements and then turn. It was all fluid and moving into one almost. They came together and formed a triangle. Were like that for a few seconds and then just disappeared.
We were all sitting in a circle, and George, opposite me, noticed this black disc first, and we all turned, obviously, to see it. And we were just very excited. I mean, I couldn't believe that, you know, OK, this was our first evening, and we'd seen something.
And I said to my son, "What do you think it is?" I thought perhaps it was something alien. I didn't know. I just didn't know what to think. My son wasn't at all scared. He thinks we send probes out, so why shouldn't other people send probes here?
The first time we had our first encounter, there was 6 of us seen it. That was my mother, my father, my brother, my sister-in-law and my fiancée. And we all couldn't explain what we seen.
Now this craft was about 12 feet away from the children and I. It was huge. It covered the roof of the house. It was silver in colour. It had a purpley violet light that seemed to pulsate round the centre of the craft.
2 of them was, I suppose, like a silver star. One was glowing red and the other was glowing green.
Join us after the break for more eyewitness accounts on EarthScan Special Report.
EarthScan Special Report.
Welcome back to part 2 of this EarthScan Special Report. Our next account concerns the work of crop circle expert Colin Andrews. He's been investigating the crop circle phenomenon for over 13 years and has written a number of books on the subject. We join him hot on the detective trail of a newly discovered crop circle reported on EarthScan last summer.
Well, the only 3 things that I can say for certain is that some less well-defined areas of flattened vegetation are formed by natural processes, heavy wind and rain. It is also for certain that people are making crop circles. What is also certain is that there is a core phenomena. Anybody and everybody that's been involved with this in looking at the data is convinced, including the people that make them, that there is a core phenomena. We have plants that are changed at the cellular anatomic level. There are consistent mathematical ratios. The phenomenon is continuing to appear globally. My initial impressions, having just walked into this pattern, would be that it's one of only two in the country currently, one near Cambridge and this one, Alton Barnes, near Marlborough, that would be worthy of much, much closer inspection. First of all, they are extremely well defined. The edges of this circle are very much cookie cutter, sharpness and preciseness. And we've noticed from the air last night that from the center of the spiral, the vortex of each of these individual circles, there is a fingerprint which we have learned to identify with computer help over the years as being possibly of the genuine kind. Of course, the plants have to be removed and analyzed, as will the soil. And perhaps in 5 or 6 months' time, we'd be in a better position to say, we think this is real. The pattern itself is totally unique. It does look very much like a double helix, but it is a unique pattern. But what we have noticed now over the last 13 years is that a hand is played early in the season, which is like a building block, which is then built upon as the season progresses. So I would not be at all surprised if you and I were together again towards the end of this summer months, looking at a whole series that have evolved from this as a basic building block. I like to look a little more closely at the stem of the plant, which does reveal clues because it's a plant which easily bruises. You get a hue on the plant, which means that people in constructing would clearly damage the surface of the plant. And I have seen surface plants that don't have that damage there, so that would be another clue. You're looking at physical clues, on the ground clues, and then of course when plants are analyzed back in the States by Dr. Levengood, we have Professor Hawkins in Washington who will look at the mathematical relationships because there are consistent mathematical ratios, and then we'll build up the case. It's like any police detective work. Look at all of the information. There is here a very unusual phenomena. There's plenty of evidence that the phenomena, the creator, if you will, the crop circle maker, has a tendency at times, and very powerfully at times, to interact with the psyche of the individual on the ground, that is, the researcher on the ground. I'm convinced, as I have been for about 8 years, more so now than ever, that we are looking at intelligence from wherever it comes, and I've never ever laid a hand as to guess where that might be. But that will have to be done sooner or later, because we have an important phenomena. Whether you speak to the Minister of Defence, like somebody like Nick Pope, Head Air Secretary at the Minister of Defence in London, whether you're talking to some government officials that I have, I'm off from here to Helsinki and to Japan and to Canada, talking to government scientists who know as well as I know this is important. The phenomena is evolving. It's evolving in its complexity, in its size. We had circles 65 feet across only in 76, 77. Now you have arrays 1/4 of a mile, 2 years ago, 1/2 a mile across. I had a report coming to you for this interview in Oxfordshire of a pattern over 1,000 feet across. These patterns are known. They are simply, I think, harbingers of tremendous change in our world. These patterns mean much more than the people sat back at their television sets yet realize. This is incredibly important.
So, what do you do when you discover a crop circle? Get in touch with EarthScan, of course. And with people like Colin Andrews at work, perhaps it won't be long before we get some scientific answers. Another phenomenon associated with crop circles is the appearance inside them of strange balls of light. Our next witness on EarthScan, George Bishop, has managed to collect photographic evidence of these mysterious lights. But is having pictorial evidence always enough to give you any answers?
Over the last few years, there have been many recorded occurrences of lights being taken by photographers in this region. I'd visited a crop circle, the first one I'd ever seen in Cornwall, and as far as I know, maybe the first one in Cornwall. And the following year, I took some friends out to visit another series of crop circles that had appeared and took some photographs of the people inside the circles. And on 2 of the photographs that we took that day, there were balls of light. Broad daylight, one was green and one was a sort of pearly opalescent colour. I took it to an expert at the Plymouth Polytechnic, and he said he could only say it must be a sun flare because what else could it be? He agreed that it was the wrong shape, the wrong place, and unlikely. But what else could it be? But if I produced them at night, then that would be interesting. After that time, we often went out deliberately to take these pictures, and we would often come home with shots of light, balls of light on film. Sometimes we'd use 3 or 4 film and get nothing. But there were other occasions when we felt this is the time to take a photograph, and we would very often come home with 30 or 40 shots with maybe 200 or 300 balls of light on those shots. At the end of the day, we just have photographs with balls of light in them. We still got no explanations. And unless we can actually produce one and hold it in our hand, where do we go from there? I think that in general, they are in part of the spectra that's outside the normal human range, which is why we don't see them, but the camera can. The camera can see parts of the spectra that we can't. I think on occasions, if conditions are right, maybe if there's a slight dust in the air, or a day like today when it's slightly misty, then perhaps we can see them then. Maybe they interact somehow with the dust on the crop. And perhaps on rare occasions we can see them. Or perhaps they come from some other dimension, and who knows? Perhaps they don't want us to see them. And in this particular field that we're sitting in at the moment, I've photographed a UFO, an object flying past a gateway just on the left here. But I've no explanation of what it is. I didn't see it. The camera saw it. Is it a fault in the emulsion? Is it something in the process? Was it something that happened to be passing the camera at the time? I just don't know. There are lots of people, farmers locally, who are afraid of the circles and the lights. And they'll acknowledge that they exist, but they don't want to talk about them. I think there are some people who are more likely to see them than others. I think you've got to have an open mind. You know, if somebody comes up with an explanation that I'm happy with, I'll say, great, wonderful. It won't stop me looking. It won't stop me photographing in the hope that I get something different. But I'll be quite happy if somebody can give me an explanation.
From balls of light, we move to the more gruesome prospect of unusual animal mutilation. The appearance of mutilated animals has for a long time been a matter of interest in America. But now the phenomenon seems to be appearing on this side of the Atlantic too. David Coleman recently took video film of what he believes could be an example of these mutilations. And a warning, this story is not for the squeamish.
I was walking from Edinburgh Airport to the A8, and I discovered a sheep that was lying maybe 20 yards inside a field. Initially, I thought the sheep's head had been removed. Before I knew it, I was over the fence and having a look. The sheep had an ear cored out. Its eye was totally missing from the socket. It had a large gaping wound on its shoulder area. The wounds were precise. There was obviously matter removed from this wound. The bone inside the sheep looked carbonised. The wound itself looked black and possibly serrated. The rectum was cored out, and it had 2 puncture marks on its hind quarter. Animal mutilation is a worldwide phenomenon. It occurs in any animal, any species, from the smallest mouse to the largest elephant. In Britain, it's had its fair share. I've seen pictures of mice, deer, badgers, sheep, cows. It's all gone on, but the government seem to be suppressing it. The wounds range from coring out the rectum, eyes, ears missing, glands removed, jaws are usually exposed, the skin out of the jaws, genital areas are removed, brains, internal organs are usually drained out through a small hole. Animal mutilation theory ranges from the actual ET, alien type surgery, if you like, to natural predators, big cat sightings, satanic cults. Government, they do have special laboratories testing animals. And who's to say that they just don't dump them in a field somewhere? And you've got to take all these things into consideration when you come across a animal mutilation. You can't just jump straight to the ET hypothesis. You've got to discard all these other ideas. When you take a film of a UFO, you'll probably get films of lights in the sky, and that's easy to debunk. But if you have a carcass there that is mutilated in a certain way, that's not so easy to debunk. You have physical evidence of activity that cannot be explained. That's why the government are really quite hard on this, And I believe that there's a special department set up to investigate people who investigate mutilations. There has been a lot of research into animal mutilations, and I'd say the top man in Britain was Tony Dodd, and he has got a fantastic amount of evidence to support these theories. And I'd like help to get this analysed, so if anybody's out there that can help, please get in contact.
A man in search of some answers there. Next, we tackle one of the most controversial subjects to be dealt with on Earthscan, alien abduction. On the 17th of August, 1992, Gary Woods and his friend Colin were driving in Scotland when they saw a UFO. The experience frightened both men, but their fear turned to anger when they received no response from the usual authorities. So, with the help of a local ufologist, Gary underwent regression therapy, which took him back to the night he saw the craft.
Under the hypnosis, I saw what I can only describe at the time as like a wee man. But the thing was, it didn't look human. It had like the shape of like a small boy, but it had odd shaped eyes, funny coloured eyes. There wasn't any hair present to that. It was just like something horrible. I saw this other creature. It was brown in colour. It had like loads of folds of skin. It must have been about, I reckon, 4 feet. It had like a heart-shaped head. It had hundreds of folds of skin, like kind of contours on a map. And to me, it just seemed ancient. I questioned myself on it, thinking, am I going nuts here? This thing, it had its head right up to my face. And I just started to hear things in my head. And it felt like it was trying to explain itself to me. It said to me in my head, and you can take it or leave it, it said to me that I've got a life like you, but different. Things happen to us, but what's got to be done is got to be done. My sense of reality to normal life's changed. I realise that there is more to life than what we think. And I just feel that the government and the Ministry of Defence, I just feel they're not doing enough and listening to enough people on the subject. I feel that they should be doing more research. It's happening on a worldwide basis, this. They've got evidence of video footage, they've got evidence of pictures, but yet they still say it's of no defence significance, that obviously they must know what it is, or they're not telling us, but it's something,
Time for a break now, but do join us for part 3, in which we take a look at the important work of the UFO archives in Sweden. Stay tuned. Welcome back to part 3 of Earthscan Special Report. Many people who claim to have had sightings of UFOs find it hard to know what to do next when they approach officials like the Ministry of Defence or the police for more information. They're often as not ignored. On a trip to the UFO archives in Stockholm, Earthscan found that in Sweden at least, sightings are taken far more seriously.
Sweden has a rather rich tradition UFO-wise. We had, Swedish priests had an obligation in the 18th and 19th centuries to report everything that was strange in their parish.
This is, as far as we know, the largest UFO archive in Europe. And we started in 1973 to build a foundation for UFO research, for serious scientific research, UFO research here in Sweden. The people who study this subject, there are sort of 2 groups: neo-religious, New Age groups, and there are scientific groups. And we want to study this subject from a scientific angle.
In 1946, there was a huge wave of sightings over Sweden. It's just now 50 years this summer. And there were at least 1,000 reports from all over Sweden that summer. And this is a huge file in Stockholm, and we have digged through this file and copied it and tried to reinvestigate most of these cases that are worthy of investigation.
Here we have the book collection, and it is about 2,500 titles in this library. We tried to collect all UFO books that are published, but of course the costs set a limit. We think there is about 10,000 UFO books published worldwide, so we have here about 25% of these books. Here we have from the 15th, 16th century and up to here, 1996. About 3,000 of these reports come from Swedish military sources. We have copied them from military archives. And I would say that about 600 or 700 of these reports are really interesting. We still regard them as UFOs, UFO phenomena. Here we have over 20,000 clippings from Swedish newspapers. And this one, for instance, is from 1968. So if you open it here, you have old clippings. Here is an observation made on the 7th of November, 1772, of a shining object in the sky. It may have been a meteor, of course, we don't know, but I think that is rather unique. There is no evidence that we have visitors from outer space, but there is a UFO phenomenon. This is two different questions. After 25 years, I still don't know what the UFO phenomenon represents.
Let's hope that the work of the UFO archives in Sweden leads to more understanding of this phenomenon worldwide. But that's all we've got time for on this special report. Well, these accounts have certainly convinced me that more research should be done. So please do send in your reports to EarthScan and keep us informed of any UFO activity or unexplained phenomenon that you, the viewers, come across. Bye for now.